When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Imagínate escuchar tu canción favorita como si fuera la primera vez. Te presentamos el totalmente nuevo y reimaginado Neeson Kicks con sonido Bose Personal Plus y bocinas en la parte superior de los asientos para crear una experiencia 360. Jamás has escuchado algo así. Reimagina tu música y tu forma de manejar. Descubre el totalmente nuevo y reimaginado Neeson Kicks en NeesonUSA.com. Función disponible. Bose es una marca registrada de The Bose Corporation.
Slow Burn Media and Bill Huffman present Who Killed, a podcast that provides a voice for the voiceless.
If I was a detective, I would be looking through my old cases for sure.
In December, 10 TV aired an update on the death of 15-year-old Lori Nesson. That night, a viewer called police with information that helped close the 46-year-old case. And Wednesday, Crime Tracker 10's Angela Ann revealed that information helped investigators ultimately solve the case.
Well, tonight, Crime Tracker 10's Lacey Chris continues our coverage as she explains how crime analysts put the pieces together.
Investigators solved one of the oldest cold cases in central Ohio after Crime Tracker 10's Angela Ann spoke with Lori Nesson's family and investigators back in December. So when you got that initial match, Lori's face, what would you do?
It was just incredible. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
But investigators had a similar case in the area and threw DNA samples matched Nesson's case to 17-year-old Karen Adams' case.
That's when I looked at that other case that was not told me. And put up those blood samples that I'm shocked.
2 decades-old cases solved with an elephant 10 TV viewer and the advancement in DNA testing. Flieger and Charles Webber were already convicted felons who've now passed away.
Considering the level of crime that occurred, I definitely think it's possible that these two individuals committed other crimes.
Investigators are asking other departments in the area to take a look at similar cold cases from that time. Solving cases, no matter how old, is why Deputy Herneman said she worked so hard on finding anything to close the case.
For me, it's like that was like to have closure, able to start the process is just getting impressive.
In London, Lacey Chris reporting TV News.
You can see our complete coverage of how this case came together on our website. Just go to 10tv.com/crimetracker10.
Hello and welcome to episode 125 of Who Killed. I'm your host, Bill Huffman, and this is a Slow Burn Media production. I am very lucky to be joined again this week. He's been missed on the show, and that is one Nick, the host of the one and only True Crime Garage podcast. Welcome back to the show, Nick. It is very nice to have you.
Thank you for having me back here, Bill. I've been begging to come on, and you said no, I'm too busy and I got too much going on. I've been listening to the show, and no, I'm joking. I'm very happy to be on time. Chat with my good friend.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I've been focused these past few weeks on DNA cases and cold cases that kind of, they kind of reach a realm once they cross that 40-year period or 30-year period where you're really grasping at straws. And I think I covered a case from 1953, and then I covered a case from 1972. And the case that we're going to talk about today is actually a couple cases within the topic that we're talking about. That is the case of Lori Nesson. She was actually killed back in 1974. She was a student at Columbus High School. And I know that you being from Columbus, assuming you were aware of the case, and when this DNA evidence came out just recently, it's something that probably hit close to home to you. What are your thoughts about, the Lori case, the breakthrough that just happened?
Well, truth told, Bill, I was unaware of the case until they made DNA connection, until that came. Decided that they made this connection. We finally have the case being closed out in proper manner. More high school, to give a little background. On the side of Columbus proper, it would have been a fairly large school even at 7. And this would have been a well-populated area. The thing that really caught my eye when this came out, connected to and saying, hey, these are the perpetrators having killed a young woman.
Mm-hmm.
Thought, wow, this is incredible, because there were a lot of cases that were already on my radar, unsolved cases from the early 70s, late 70s. I thought, well, if these two maniacs are out there doing this sort of thing, we'll get into sort of things they were doing. It sounded familiar to me in regards to some of those other cases. So I was completely intrigued by the breakthrough case. And I'm knowing Franklin County Sheriff's Department, Columbus, how thorough they've been and how vested they've been, specifically Columbus cold case as past 5, that I'm sure they look at.
Yeah, and the two guys that we're talking about are Charles Webber and Robert Meyer. And these guys, I mean, you want to talk about some of the worst I mean, you talk about people, recidivism, being in and out of the system. These guys from 1963 basically were terrorizing women in Ohio. Shocking that it took so long for them to actually, get connected to these other crimes. But kudos to the, Attorney General and the basically, ran the DNA again. And another thing that's so interesting about this case, the Lori's case, is that it was actually spawned from a tipster. And you know about this tipster, and that was said she was a cousin of Karen Adams.
Correct. So Karen Adams lived in that same area of so you have the east side of Columbus that kind of carries out Whitehall, then you go on Reynoldsburg, Blacklick area, and so both of the crimes, Lori Nesson, Karen Adams, everything involved in their abduction, murder, and then where the bodies were eventually found are going to involve that far side of Columbus and then expand out. And so it's all that same general area. And we also talked about the same time frame, right? Within about a year or so of one another.
Within 6 months, actually.
6 months, yes. And so what we have here is Karen Adams' husband. 10 TV, which is local news in Columbus, it is the biggest news outlet. They own not Channel 10 TV, but they own several Columbus Dispatch as well as several radio stations. So
I did not realize that.
Yeah, that's the big boy here in Columbus. And they ran a story on this case. And I believe that typically when something big or a big story hits and news, it's going to hit those other outlets too. You know how you having worked in the news yourself, you know how there's that trickle down. And so it aired on 10 News, but I believe the cousin was specifically referencing an article saying, hey, this unsolved murder, Lori Nesson unsolved murder, has so many similarities. My cousin's murder, which was solved, and sounds like that one wasn't solved quickly either.
No, no. In all reality, that case, again, I mentioned in the episode, once the case reached that 30, 40 point, you're really lucky. I mean, to say the least, is if you find perpetrator. And it was 37 years that it went unsolved. So it wasn't like it was happening.
Yeah, so this was interesting because we had several law enforcement agents that are going to have to work because we have Reynoldsburg police that are going to get involved. And now they're going to be looking to reach out to Franklin County Sheriff's Department because Franklin County Sheriff's Department is one that had previous.
Yes.
And so Detective Clark, somebody that I've spoke with multiple times on local cases here, who's a fantastic detective, been a detective for many, many years, a couple decades, worked several different burglary. You know, I think he was in the burglary division for a while, and also worked robbery and homicide. And I'm not sure what division he is in now. I don't believe he's a cold case detective, but he's a very good detective, and he offered his assistance to Reynoldsburg and offering up what information they had in the solved case so that they can compare notes. If in fact his cousin was right, are there similarities? And both detectives that looked at this from Reynoldsburg and Franklin County both agreed there's so many similarities here that we have to invest some further resources. The same two perpetrators killed Karen Adams, killed Lori.
Yeah, and then it basically took the cops to basically send in a that they were able to get from Underwood, and they eventually were able to match to Meyer. And of course, Meyer's initial reaction was, he denied it. I don't know how my DNA would have gotten there, but you know how things go. He's a liar and a killer and a kidnapper and off. And
yeah, the guys were rapists, abductors, killers, and they probably did this more times than they've been caught. And what's bizarre here is they've been caught a lot for this kind of activity. And thank God that they have both spent the majority of their adult lives behind bars, because if not, something that they would have killed dozens of.
I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Other. I mean,
they absolutely are, in my opinion, Bill. I think you're spot on with that. I don't know what I would put that number at, but
it's just they don't have the DNA or for those cases, and you can't put a number.
Do.
Well, but they don't necessarily have the DNA from that particular victim. What I'm trying to say. I mean, they have their DNA, obviously, but when it comes to cases, I mean, again, like I talked about Naperville and Julian Hansen, and there's so many stabbings, murders in Chicago. I mean, I guess the 70s kind of like heyday of serial killers, called that. Really wasn't communication between different authorities, different jurisdictions. I mean, somebody can commit a murder in one town and go live in another. They were not, because they just didn't have any DNA technology or way, other than like say fingerprints and stuff like that. Anybody who committing crimes was probably going to be wearing gloves. But like these particular guys, these guys sound like prowlers, just like we had talked off the record about how this sounds like almost like a weekend activity. You referenced. And again, if you get convicted for something like this within 6 months, I mean, I know they were convicted decades after the crime was committed, but if they committed those two crimes as those heinous crimes, murders, kidnappings of two young women, raping and assaulting them as well, and it's like, well, what else did they do? Because that's just 6 months. I mean, I know that the one guy spent 34 years of his life in jail, but what were you doing when you weren't outside of jail? Because it certainly sounds
this
like,
is what they were doing.
Yeah.
Look, and I think in a lot of jurisdictions, I don't have proper terminology in front of me. Cohorting with convicted felons is a
felon amongst themselves.
Well, it's also a violation of probation.
Yeah, or that's
violation,
that's
or
kind of
parole
what I meant. Yeah,
violation. And there's a reason for that. Look, and why are you mentioning this, Nick? Because these two guys met when they were locked up.
I was just going to go there too. In 1963, they met in prison. I mean,
one of them was already locked up for murder.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
I think killed somebody with a hammer.
No,
and I couldn't find what the other guy was locked up.
I would just take a wild guess to say it was something along the lines of assault,
murder,
rape,
or
kidnapping.
Murder. Yeah, I would bet attempted murder would be my first guess.
Sure.
So what we have here, Bill, is a situation that where we have people of like-mindedness finding one another, and the worst place you could find like-minded people, and that would be in prison.
Yep.
People serving long sentences. Unfortunately, sentences weren't long enough, and there was a lot of overcrowding in prison in the 70s, and unfortunately that made a lot of states let people out a little earlier than they wanted to, and they should have. Ohio's been guilty of that. Several other states have been guilty of that. The worst that we saw was probably Texas during the 70s. But with this case, these two maniacs, two monsters, they're homicidal monsters is what they are. And
back up a second. I want to wait. Can't throw that Texas thing out there. What are you referring
to? Texas let out the broomstick killer.
Okay.
Who had viciously raped and murdered and kidnapped women, and they let him out because the overcrowding was so bad in Texas back then that they started letting out the nonviolent offenders. Okay, well, once they let them all out, the prison population, it was still overpopulated. They had to start letting out the violent offenders, so much so that they let out people that had been convicted of murder, and not just murder, heinous murder. And so they let out McDuff. He went on to be called Broom Killer. He killed several women after they let him out. That's all this guy was ever going to do. He was going to spend his time doing drugs, abducting, raping, and killing women. And he did that successfully after they let him out. And he is a big part why now in Texas, we think of Texas as the state does not take no shit from nobody, right? Take no prisoners, take no shit. And if you kill here in our state, not only will we execute you, but we will put you on a fast track that other states. Well, the reason why they had that fast track to execution is the lessons they learned, the sad truth of what it came for them back in the 70s when they were forced to, I don't know, but when they felt that they were forced to let people like Duff out of prison.
The reason why I brought that up is because I personally didn't know much about that particular aspect of Texas in the 70s, and I was not familiar with the broomstick killer, so I just wanted to basically hear what you were referring to, at least let the listeners know what you were referring to. Because I think that also falls in line with what also was going on in the 70s, and that was the the release of all the insane asylums. We can't forget about that.
Correct.
When they were not allowed to commit people against their will, all the asylums where people of, the bad people with bad thoughts spent a lot of time, and they were wonder why home population spike, murders spike, 70s crime ridden era. I mean, Robert Meyer and Charles Webber fit right in with the bad dudes 70s. And I mean, just picture them walking around in the pen talking about, and we get out of here, we're gonna go. I mean, they're probably just scheming the whole time they're in jail about, they have similar interests. Hey, we both like to rape and kill women. That's not good to have them together. I mean, I get that, like, I know that they try to make an effort to not. I don't know if they make try to, like, individual part, but especially in the 70s they were. I know that.
Well, you can't when you're confining them in the same wall. Possible. And not to allow Kenneth Duff, the broomstick killer, to take over this show or take over this top, but was, I cited him, but he was actually released and paroled in 80 late, but that was it was a problem that didn't start the month before, the year before. It was a problem that started well before they were forced to let out somebody like Kenneth Duff, but he convicted, killed two people. That he was originally, three people. He was originally sent to die, 3 death sentences that were commuted to life imprisonment, and then they paroled him.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally makes sense.
And so that tells you the state of affairs of the prison system down in the state of Texas. And keep in mind, each state runs their own prison. And so that was the problem that was going on then. It was, for people that listen to True Crime Garage, they might be familiar with Kenneth McDuff, not because we've not covered him specifically, but was and remains a lot of people's minds today a possible suspect in the yogurt shop case.
And everybody,
because he was out and in that general area during the time. And not only that, said to some, like, he liked to play games with the cops. And he said that, like, when they asked him about yogurt shop, he was always very weird about it. Then later in life, that I think he even told some people he did it, but I don't think he did. Number one, and number two, he said some other things like almost like belittling the crime. Yogurt shop. If had he done it, they would have, as bad as that whole thing was. He's saying had he done it, it would have been a worse crime.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
Well, because with the yogurt shop murder case, I mean, really, none of the women were sexually assaulted, except for one, right? Or was?
I don't want to get into specifics of yogurt shop because that's a whole.
I know. I know. I did like a 3-parter on it.
At least one of the female victims. There were 4 female victims.
Okay. Because you would think, but I feel like with the yogurt shop case, unless Kenneth McDuff was with another dude, I mean, I think those 2 guys were the ones who committed the crime. And people who probably have no idea what we're talking about can go back to your episode, Shop Murders, get your app, or my episode, Yogurt Shop Murder, or Who Killed the Girl.
Yeah, so the thing that connects him to Yogurt Shop is there was an abduction and torture and murder of a woman that was abducted not terribly far from the Yogurt Shop within a year or so of the Yogurt Shop case, and McDuff committed that crime with something. Yeah, so dude, I'm telling you, when you look at him and you look at Yogurt Shop, there's a lot of reason to think that he could have done it. I said on True Crime Garage that his MO was to find a female victim and take them. He did that almost every single time. And so my thought has always been with McDuff, his number one goal would have been to take, because what he was interested in was the torture portion of his crime, more so than anything else. All those other crimes only came about because he wanted sexually assault and torture women at the same time. And so he would have removed all 4 victims from the Yogurt Shop and taken with him somewhere. And that didn't happen. And that doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove that McDuff didn't do it. It's just my dumb garage opinion. Now, back to our case, though, what is interesting to me is 2 like-minded individuals who meet in prison. It's not a rare thing, right? It's not a rare thing. We know that in Cold Blood, the Clutter family, they were killed from 2 guys met in prison. Now, they were killed for different reasons than what Meyer and Webber were out doing, but Lawrence Bittaker and Roy North out in California, they killed 5 people in 1979.
Otis Toole and whatever the other name was. Otis Toole's partner.
Lee Lucas.
Yeah, Henry Lee Lucas. Yeah. I mean,
did they meet in prison?
Because I know you would think. I mean,
yeah. Well,
I mean, how else would these 2 individuals meet? I mean, they weren't like gregarious, social-minded individuals. The only place they could meet would be in prison, because that's the place.
We know Bittaker and Norris met in prison. They killed 5 women together in 1979. They met when in lockup in San Luis Obispo. And then we have, this is a lesser known, but I'm only citing a couple. This a lot more common than I think people are aware of. But Steve Gordon and Frank Hanna, they killed 5 people in Santa Ana and Anaheim, California, in 2013 and 2014. They were both wearing ankle monitors when they killed 5. They met under similar circumstances. What you have here, Bill, people that get, unfortunately, what people like Meyer and Webber have in common, and they might not really fully understand what they are, but my understanding and my belief with types of monsters are that, number one, above and beyond, often what we see in this case is you get 2 guys that are locked up for rape and sexual assault. And then they start talking with each other, and they both have the same understanding of their crime. Well, I was only convicted. I only got caught because pardon my French, I'm going to talk like I'm one of these guys. I only got caught because that bitch, she went to the cop. She was able to, tell them what kind of car I was driving or give them some kind of evidence. And they start to develop this idea that, you know what, if I would have killed her, she wouldn't have been around to tell anybody. She wouldn't have been able to tell anybody that I was driving a blue van or a green pickup truck or a white Buick. She wouldn't have been around to tell them that I was 6'2", wearing a cowboy hat and blue jeans. She would have been around to tell them that I grabbed her out of the parking lot of the bar down the street. And the week turn, and they start to go, you know what? When I get out, after I get out from serving 8, 10, 15 years, whatever it is for what I put in, I ain't leaving. I'm never going to stop. You're not going to get me to stop sexually assaulting and raping women. I'm not stopping that. I'm just going to change my game. And I'm not going to leave that bitch alive to tell them anything about me. And they'll never catch it. And the reason why these guys do it, and it's so easy for them to make the switch from rape to murder, is because they're raping because they hate women. They want to destroy women anyway. So it's not that big of a leap for them to go, all right, I've been doing this, and now I'm going to go to graduate to murder, because they were so close to doing it before. Now they have some other a-hole here that's cheering them on. This is not only that, I'll help. And so guys, Meyer and Webber, basically what they're doing, look, do I have hobbies? Yes. Bill, you got some hobbies? I'm guessing that our hobbies are pretty regular, white bread, vanilla hobbies, right? I like to watch football. I like to go out with my buddies and play cards, throw darts.
Wait.
Go
you're
fishing.
You're forgetting about, like, oh, wait.
Right. These guys, their hobby
Yes,
isn't hunting or
disgusting.
fishing or redoing old cars. It's, you know what? Hey, let's go out, have a drink, and then we'll drive around in my van or my pickup truck
Gotta
or
be
my
a van.
car or whatever.
It's gotta be a van.
Well, but for what they want to do, a van offers a different kind of mobile structure than what a vehicle, than a car does, right? Their number one goal, Webber and Meyer, is the rape portion. Just like we talked about McDuff, his fascination was with the torture portion of his crime. All those other crimes were necessary because he wanted to torture a woman. Webber and Meyer, all of their other crimes are necessary for them to commit because they want to rape a woman. And you said something earlier about you were a little surprised that they weren't solved. Frankly, I'm not surprised that it took so long to solve, because 95%, maybe probably more, it's in the high percentile of the murders and homicides that happen in this country is because somebody is mad at somebody. And these are people that know one another. Bill did something to me. You know what? I'm going to get revenge on him. And maybe my assault's I'm going to lose it. It's going to turn into murder. Maybe I didn't intend to murder Bill, but it ended up being that way. What have you. But the 90-some% of the murders and homicides in the country are a result of one person being angry at another individual for something. And so when you have the convicted felons who are already, they're violent, murderous individuals. They're driving around drunk, probably still drinking in whatever vehicle. And I'm not trying to sell a ban the van. Sure, I own a van myself. All right.
Do you?
Yeah, do own it. But what I'm pointing out, again, a van offers a different type of structure. It offers a different type of space for the guys to do what it is that they want to do. And unfortunately for the victim, these are just complete crimes of opportunity. These guys are unorganized serial sex offenders is what they are.
Let's hear from this week's best. Really great getting back from summer. I know I'll be heading to the movies and hitting the beach. And while at the beach, I may give my brain a refreshment by opening Best Fiends on my phone. True crime calls for a beach break now and then, and that's when I turn to Best Fiends. Solving puzzles is kind of my thing, and Best Fiends offers me a new challenge every day. It's way more fun than the other. It's also one of those games that makes 30 minutes feel like 30 seconds. And guess what? It's totally free to download. One of the coolest parts about Best Fiends is whenever I open the game, there's something new going on. Whether it's a new challenge, new levels, or a fun monthly event. And I am really flying through these levels, which is a sample that much anybody can play. I find that moving through these puzzles and is a great and really does refresh the brain. Collecting all those different characters, just another challenge. So if you're tired of the same old puzzle games, I believe this game is for you. And I actually have a favorite. And he's personality. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on this game. So join me and millions of people who are already playing fun puzzles. Download Best Fiends for free in the Apple App Store or Google Play today. That's Friends without the R. Best fiend. All right, we are back.
And what an unorganized individual will do is they're not really worried about hiding their identity because there's no reason for them to do so. One, they don't know the victim. Whoever's going to end up being their victim, they don't know who that is. And I'm willing to bet that these guys not only have more victims, I wouldn't put the number so high, but my other guess would be that, and I don't have to guess. I would be willing to bet the farm and that van that these guys went out and did this many nights.
Yeah.
Probably once or twice a week. And this was typical behavior for them. And why did they kill on night A, not kill on night B? Sadly, in this situation, it's probably because they didn't see anybody.
Yeah, it's like you do these things, you go out, not like when when we're talking about hobby, we're saying guys enjoyed prowling, stuff like that. Like you said, okay, they go out 3 or 4 nights a week. We're not saying that they went out and killed 3 or 4 women a week because, generally speaking, if you do that at that high of a volume, chances are you're going to get caught sooner rather than later. I think when they didn't kill, I think they probably either one didn't come across a victim, or if they did come across a victim, the circumstances were one, they have already been seen, or there was eyewitness. And again, like these 2 girls, Karen Adams and Lori Nesson, were abducted in probably a very quick amount of time. It doesn't take very long to drag somebody into your van and cruise off if there's nobody in sight. And then if somebody turns the corner who's walking around the block, they wouldn't even know that girl was there. So I think in these particular cases, it is, they're clearly crimes of opportunity, but they're also seeking out these crimes. And then I think they're making a choice whether or not is this one going to get us caught. I really don't feel like going back to jail. But if the rate, it's just tough to get in the mind of a killer when you're not a killer because.
Well, it can be, but individuals aren't particularly complex.
No.
They're very, they're
Neanderthals.
Very, yes, they have very little in the way of priority. They have no goals. That's what they are. They don't, again, they're unorganized offenders that traditionally, what the numbers tell us, they have no need to hide, no want nor need to hide their identity because they don't know who their victim's going to be. It won't be known to them. And if you're out driving around and you're not throwing somebody in your van or vehicle until midnight or 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning, and they look where they are. These guys are not intelligent in definition. They're intelligent at getting away with what they want to do because A, they've done it before and got away, and B, they've done it before and got caught. So trial and error, they've learned something to do and something not. And what they are looking for is male victim. They're not particularly particular about who their victim is. They're looking for the opportunity. What is the opportunity? A female victim that's solo, out by herself, that we happen to come across, and this so happens to be no cars around, nobody else see us to identify our vehicle or plate number, what our description, our physical description is, and then think about the way that the body acts. There's just pull up and throw the body in a ditch somewhere. And why? Because there's no reason for them to go to the length, the measure of concealing the body because there's no connection from the victim to them. And as sad as it may be, that's what these guys did. What is our proof that they've done it multiple times? These guys are serial killers working together. Our proof is A, the one guy was already locked up for murder, and when he gets out in 73, he's become buddies with the other guy, and then they go out murdering together. And as Bill said, within a 6-month time period, they managed to abduct and murder 2 different women. And then in 1977, they're convicted for 2 separate incidents in Northwest Ohio, where they did basically the same thing. They just were unsuccessful in the killing portion.
Yeah,
where
Toledo
they,
area.
yeah, Toledo area. They abduct, rape, and attempted murder on 2 different victims in different, in 2 different separate attacks. So what they did there, like, it looks to me, Bill, from what I can see, unfortunately, Karen Adams and Lori, looks to me like they were probably strangled. And if I have that wrong, I know you'll correct me, but at a later date.
They don't mention too much about like how they autopsy show are. I know that the body, like, he was found too, so it's like assault, sexual assault. To me, that's, and discarded that way. That's, and I hate to use that word because we're talking about a human being, but that's what it was to these guys. These guys didn't think, even like last week I did a case and the guy in that case, he says at one point during his, like, when he's confessing, he's, well, I put a jacket over her because I didn't want her to get cold. I mean, there are different types of murder, so that's weird for people to try to grasp, but like, people who respect women, kill them. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that's like that. I mean, I just think that there's I don't know. Killers have different motivations, but these guys in particular, their motive strictly to get what they wanted out of it. That was to, I hate to use this because it sounds so colonial, but rape and pillage, these women. And it's kind of almost like these guys were pre-programmed to do this kind of stuff. I mean, sure, they meet in prison. Meyer's already there for murder. Webber, is there probably for assault. It's so interesting that they had 4 years where they could have been doing. I think if I'm an investigator from that area, from anywhere in the state of Ohio, I am going to look at any case 7 that involves any young female. All. How can you not look at these guys for every single case? Because their propensity. I mean, he even says it in his confession. We would go out and prowl. We would sexually assault, and I mean, like, that sounds like he's boasting about. So
yeah, according to the detective, I mean, that's one of the killer's own words.
Yes, exactly.
We would get together and we would go out and drive around looking for a victim. And then later you have the detective saying, hey, these guys were out drunk. They would get nice and lubricated and drunk and go out and drink and drive and look for a victim. And unfortunately, some nights they found. And then with the case, I guess probably the attempt, why I keep going back to strangulation, that seems to be the thing that killers get wrong most often from the cases I've reviewed, where they think that they've successfully killed someone, but they later come to, and they've even gone to the point where they've discarded or dumped the body. Unfortunately, and then fortunately the victim wakes up at some point, and is able to tell police what happened and who abducted them, what they did to them. And so these guys locked up from one of them for 10 years. I don't know when the other one went in. But
it doesn't
out.
say.
And here, think of the continued streak of bad luck for just community involved. They get out roughly about the same time. They're out for that 3 to 4 year time period before they're convicted of attempted murder up in Northwest Ohio.
Yeah.
And then they spend a good amount of time in prison. Again, I think they're released, 2001?
Well,
And then
I think Webber died too.
Webber dies in 92.
Or
Then in
94, 92 or 94.
2001, Meyer. But then in 2011, Meyer is then convicted of the Adams case. And it's not until 2021 they connect Meyer and Webber, the Neeson, which they had already. Webber confessed to the Adams case at some point while he was already up. So all their crimes that they did after 73, they likely did all of them together. Sounds like to me. That doesn't mean that it's impossible that they did them separately. It's just here probably was here for them together. It's scary.
Power and number.
And it's scary to think about the number of victims that they possibly could have. Because you're talking about a 4-year time span, you're talking about people probably doing this very frequently or wanting frequently. And think about the distance. The far east side of Columbus and Toledo. That's not close proximity for people that are listening in other states. What's the drive time?
Well,
on
we're
that?
talking
An hour and a half, 2 hours.
We're talking 2 hours, and we're talking about you can go 70 to 75, and you go up 75, and you're going to go Findlay. You're going to go through Bowling Green. I mean, I would look at cases around the Bowling Green area. I mean, out of the co-ed around there. Then you have Toledo. I mean, we're not talking about. I mean, Ohio. A lot of people like to think of Ohio as straight up farmland, and yeah, we have a lot of farmland, but we also have a lot of big cities, or a lot of bigger cities than most people think of. If you think about Cincinnati, Columbus, Dayton,
Cleveland,
Toledo, Youngstown, Akron. I mean,
Akron's huge.
That's what I'm saying. Like we're talking about a few 100,000 people in all of the cities. Columbus is obvious, I think, the most populated because
Columbus, 13th largest city.
It's because you have such damn large. Your city's so much larger than Cleveland. It's hilarious. Right. Like our proper is so much smaller than Columbus proper.
Columbus is sprawling.
Oh, it's crazy. Columbus, not to go on a tangent. I mean, Columbus is like the mecca of the fast food world. And I mean, it's like if you're like, if a company wants to test something out, they go to Columbus. It's crazy.
Well, Wendy's was founded.
Well, Dave Thomas, absolutely.
Greater Columbus.
Absolutely. I've been to the.
God bless.
I mean, is it the original downtown?
That was the second one.
Okay.
Well, you know what? That might be the first one. It was actually originated from Dublin.
Oh, okay.
Ohio. But it's called Columbus. So I don't know if that means the first one was in Dublin or if Dave Thomas from Dublin.
Yeah, not to go on a fast food tangent.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
That's a whole other story.
Welcome to Fast Food Nation. Bill Huffman. Correct. From Burger Garage.
Did you check out the latest chicken sandwich? Wherever. Yeah. Anyway, back to the story.
I did a quick so Eastmore High School.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the victims here was have witnesses that hung out with her that night. You know, their fortunate guys found her while they were out trolling in the middle of the night and had gone to a football game. It doesn't get any more Ohio than that. High school, you go to every high school home football game, and if you're lucky enough, you're popular enough to get invited to a party or two after. I didn't fall into that category.
Or go to Friendly's or Subway or wherever but local
Bill was popular enough to go to the Friendly's. I was popular enough to just go home. But our victim here, unfortunately, was popular enough to be invited to a couple of parties that they attended at least one of them afterwards. So these guys were picking them up in the middle of the night, football game until 10:30.
It's dark and it's the 70s. It's not like we're talking about people were very cognizant of personal security. It's not like there were cameras, CCTV, lights everywhere like there are nowadays. I mean, it was probably a heck of a lot easier to abduct somebody at 10:30 than it is now at 10:30. I mean, just in that area alone, I guarantee you it's brighter, more, cameras and ATM cameras, bank cameras everywhere.
Oh yeah, especially once you get back to like Whitehall today is very inner city. I don't think it would have been that way in 1970. And Reynoldsburg would have been very much a ghost town after 11.
Yeah, Reynoldsburg isn't Reynoldsburg kind of I don't want to say the boon, isn't it? Kind of no,
not quite.
Okay.
Because you have a lot of suburbs today. That Reynoldsburg might have been a little boonies in the early 70s.
Okay.
So Columbus.
It just seems like a good place to ditch the body if you need a body.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're picking her up from a location and then they're driving away from the city. Dump the body. Done. Today, Columbus is the 14th most populous city in the United States. I feel like we're skyrocketing. I feel like just years ago it was like 16.
Well, you actually increase your population every year, where Cleveland loses population every year. It's a weird thing, but I think it also has to do with Ohio and the fact that you have sprawling a much bigger area to kind of build out. Cleveland are kind of locked in by the lake, so it is
one of these days that university is going to own.
It doesn't.
They
what are you going to say? Yeah. What are you talking about?
It's just more fun to say it that way, Bill. But not to freak anybody out, but when we talk about what the guys could have been up, and we talk about the cold cases that are out there, according to the Ohio Attorney General's office cold case homicide database they have, there are over 200 cold case homicides in the state of Ohio. And I to tell you, Bill, and everybody else out there and listener, that number, they're missing people from that. There are unsolved homicides in this state that I know that have not made their way to that, because the way that database works is on the investigating agent's back for them to supply the information to basically submit their case to the database. They don't bother to do so. It doesn't end up on the database. So what we do know is over 2,200 confirmed unsolved homicides in the state of Ohio. And a quick Google Maps, Toledo, Ohio to Moore Academy High School in Columbus is a 2-hour and 29-minute drive.
Yeah.
That's a lot of land. There's a lot of ditches between those two spots.
And I'm not kidding when you talk about, I know these guys were convicted of, Karen Adams was 17. So that's the reason why I think of 18-year-olds would still fall in line. 19-year-olds, college girls. I mean, you have the University of Findlay, you have, University of Toledo, Bowling Green, all these different colleges and universities along that path. There's got to be some connection to some of those unsolved cases, those parts of the state that are related to Myers Webber. I mean, it seems almost impossible that they didn't do more. I refuse to believe. And like you said, you bet you're going to bet your van farm. I'll bet I bet my house. They're at the very least there are assaults that they were never convicted of. And I would almost guarantee
there must
murder.
Be, right, and there must. All right, well, never mind. I'm strike that from the record. I don't want to go down that.
Well,
but, I'm not changing gears here, but what I'm trying to point out to the list, and we're lucky enough to both have a lot of listeners and a lot of good people in the state of Ohio listening. Think about the way this went down. Karen Adams' homicide in the early 70s was not solved until 2000. Okay. And then we have Lori Neson's case not solved until 2021. And her case is solved simply because somebody notified the Reynoldsburg department that says, hey, that sounds a lot similar to how the Karen Adams go. So what I want to throw out there is these guys were on the loose and actively working and abducting and killing together from 73, maybe late 76 or sometime in 77. I don't have the exact conviction date when they were convicted in 77. And I'm guessing it might have been 2 separate trials. But this is a heed the call moment to all the listeners out there in the great state of Ohio, especially those that have awareness from Columbus, Ohio up to Toledo.
Yeah.
That's again 2.5 hour drive time between those two. If you are aware of a cold case, especially if it's a woman found by herself, it's alongside the road or a cornfield that murdered, cold case from that time period, that window of 3 to 4 years, a simple call of, hey, this sounds a lot similar to what these guys do. And it's a situation where, like Bill said, may not have been able to put DNA off of certain victims for any number of reasons. It was the 70s, it was early 70s. They might not have known to look for it. In these two cases, in Adam and Neeson, they may not have been actively storing the DNA. They may have actually stored the victim's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the one case, that's how they recovered the DNA of perp. So these are guys that I think could still be connected to. You and I are both in 100% agreement. They've done and committed other crimes. These could be other homicides, and if they were, they're unsolved. And these are guys that could be connected to some other cases. And I'm intrigued by this because I hope that a lot of red flags went up for different sheriff's departments and police departments across the state. Look at the guys, consider the guys. Let's close another case, get another case off of the desk and close it. I don't want to use the word closure.
Nope.
The more I do this, the less I believe in it. And but let's provide answers to those who didn't have answers. What happened?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I think that you did a good job of calling, call for action, CFA, whatever you call it. It's definitely something that should cognize. I mean, again, this case was solved by the tip of a relative, but still it was a tip. I mean, really is amazing. If people pay attention, cases that they have in their neighborhood that are unsolved in the 70s, and you think there may be a connection, I mean, hit up Crime Stoppers, hit up local police. Not like some of these towns, you could be in a small town. There might be one unsolved murder along the way, because how many small towns are between here and Toledo, like we were saying.
Exactly.
I mean, I mentioned the bigger cities, colleges, but again, that there are ditches, so many different places to guard a body. And that's, I hate to say it like that because it sounds like taking away from who the victim was. They were a person, but it's true. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of the evidence, basically protect their ass, not get caught. Basically, that's what guys. I mean, this whole story, Charles Webber and Robert Meyer, these individuals are a stain on the state of Ohio, and to think that there were other killers. I mean, I know there were 2 killers in Toledo in the 70s that were also doing similar things. It's crazy, man. Like, to think that these people are out there and they just live amongst us. And it's important for people to provide not that closure, but provide evidence of provide evidence for the particular cases. I mean, it's one of those things that if there aren't enough people to share the information with the officers, then they're not going to get closure on the case. Basically, all I'm saying, pay attention, do your due diligence. If there's an unsolved case, contact your local authorities because you never know who might be involved. And these guys, their DNA is in the record, so they can at least do a preliminary DNA check if there's DNA in the case.
That's exactly right, Bill. 100% everything said there. And while we're talking about cold case, you don't mind if I could throw in a little plug here before we wrap up today. The Ohio History Connection is a place near and dear to my heart. They're locally here in Columbus and done. When I say we, I mean Captain and I from Crime Garage have done 2 events for them in the past. Did discussion about now solved cold case from Columbus, Ohio, and we also did discussion on Sam Shepard. Of course, Bill was there with Bay Village. But on Thursday, August 26th of this year, I will be doing, not Crime Garage, but I will be doing virtual for Ohio History Connection, and that a cold case in Ohio, cold case conversation with myself and James Renner, and some of the proceeds of that will be going to obviously the Ohio History Connection, and some of that will be going to Torchlight as well. So if there's anybody that wants to join in or listen in on our Ohio cold case conversation, check that out. You can find more information very easily. Go to ohiohistory.com.
Cool. Got any other pluggables out there? Where can everybody find your stuff?
Listen to True Crime Garage, second best show next to Who Killed. If you like Who Killed, then you're going to almost like Crime Garage.
Well, that is quite the compliment, but I know you're just patting me on the back. But no, I do believe True Crime Garage is the best podcast out there, and I am very mentor along the way, and
a friend, not a mentor.
Well, you started off as a mentor and have become a. But it's very fun to discuss. Very, very informative. The listeners, I know, love listening to you on the show, and Laura, but check stuff, get your app, your back catalog, all the great episodes that you and the captain do.
Well, and another thing we should probably mention as well, and offer our support to family of the missing individuals from their lives, people that they are searching for. There is an Ohio missing person event that Cleveland. I don't have the information in front of me as far as the location, but that will be September 18th. It's pretty easy to find the information if you just look up Ohio missing event. I think you find what you're looking for. That is being put on, from my understanding, from the Department and Attorney General's office. So I'm hoping to be able to make it up there for that event, to walk around and chat with some of their victims. I mean, they're people that are looking for their missing loved ones.
Yeah.
And Bill, I'm hoping if I'm able to make it, I'm hoping bumping there.
Yeah, I plan on hooking up with you, and if James is around, we'll make our rounds. And again, it's not a convention; it's a place where victims congregate, kind of commiserate together. It's kind of one of the things that I try to focus on with the provide. I do it, say it in the opening, providing a voice, and that's basically my whole goal, because a lot of these women are just forgotten. If family members aren't around to hear on the law enforcement solve the case, a lot of cases don't. So I think it's important to participate in those events, and I think that's all very good information. And
Well, and providing a voice for the voiceless, thank you for doing that. And thank you for picking the case you did this week, because that's what we're on several occasions where somebody voice came out from the crowd, out from nowhere, and said, hey, take a look at this case. Hey, take a look at the evidence. Take a look at the case because it mirrors this. And so where these cases are incredibly tragic, sad, and heartbreaking, at least there was a voice for Karen Adams. There was a voice for Lori. Now we have a better understanding of how terrible they were. And we also need to look at what else.
I agree. And I'm glad they're both dead.
Yes.
Not the women, the perpetrators.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, because these and we are also lucky that they spent the majority of their adulthood locked up, because just these situations amongst, actually talked about at least 5 horrific crimes they were involved. It shows who they were, what they were.
Yeah, if they would have been able to run for years and years, decades, talking about prolific serial killer. Right. Nick, I know you got a roll, and man, it's always awesome to talk to you, and I know you love it. So thank you so much for your insights, and again, your time. I know it's fresh. So
thank you, Bill. It's always fun to chat.
Thank you so much again to Nick from the True Crime Garage podcast for taking time out of his great schedule to join me this week to discuss a variety of cold cases, as well as the crazy guys, Robert Myers, Charles. As you guys know, I do drop new episodes of Who Killed every Friday, wherever you get your podcast. Show right now, it's all of my episodes. As always, if you enjoy the podcast, help on the link in the show notes, or you can contribute to the show via Venmo. Do so by using at Bill Huffman free. Not a lie when I say all contributions, big or small. You can also help support the show by leaving a 5-star review on the podcast. Again, shows those 5 stars do help keep the important cases covered, such as Amy's, all the other unsolved cases. Stay up to date on the cases we have covered. Shows coming pipeline. Please don't hesitate to follow me on Twitter, Bill. Thank you again so much for listening. Nick from podcast. Find all their stuff on Stitcher. Have not, so highly recommend it. And until next time, be healthy and peace.
Hi, I'm Matt Harris. Seton Tucker and I host the podcast Impact of Influence, which for 2 years covered in depth Alec Murdaugh, who was eventually convicted in 2023 of murdering his wife Maggie and son Paul. That story continues to evolve, and we will cover that. Plus, we will tell you stories of other true crime events that have happened in the South. Please join us on Impact of Influence. And give us a follow on the Impact of Influence Facebook page.
True terrors of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. On our podcast, Disturbed, terror takes center stage. Each episode is a journey into the darkest corners of human existence, delving into bone-chilling tales of kidnappings, serial killers, maniacs, and the very essence of your worst nightmares coming to life on this weekly true horror show. Disturbed is not for the faint of heart. It's an exploration of real, unadulterated horror sourced from everyday people. Each episode is a descent into the macabre, where we narrate stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat and crawling in your skin. We navigate the disturbing narratives that lurk in the shadows, offering a raw and unfiltered listen into the most terrifying aspects of the human experience. Enter at your own risk and let the unsettling tales unfold in the haunting realm of Disturbed. And remember, listeners, stay safe out there.